Good morning. And thank you for taking one of my compliments away. Thanks so much for that newsletter. We use it all the time at GDIT. My name is Dave Venegrin. Happy to be here this morning. And Chris, you can fill a room.
Yep. Good morning, everybody.
All right. Well, we have a few topics we'd like to get out on the table, and we have a few short minutes. So I'll start with the rapid change that we see in AI, the creation of new capabilities, the integration of those capabilities in new offerings is a little bit confusing. And even for professionals who follow the field, what are some suggestions beyond your beautiful newsletter? What are some ways that we might keep up or keep informed about the rapid pace of change in artificial intelligence?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think it's really challenging to stay caught up. It seems like there's so much news every day on something new, a new model, a new tool, somebody's doing something different. So my recommendation is if you're technical, to stay close to the technology and take training and dive into the technology, whether that's through platforms like Deep Learning AI or Coursera or YouTube videos. There's so much great content from leading educational institutions like Stanford or UC Berkeley has this great LLM course that they make publicly available, and you can actually sit in every week, and they bring in guest speakers. I mean, I think that's an amazing way to hear from the people that are leading in this space. I also think trying to stay caught up on the news, to me, is really important, and I do write this newsletter, but not only that, I read the articles, at least, I can't say I read every word of every article, but I read at least the highlights, because I think it's important, and I'm especially interested in the use cases, because I want to hear about how people are using the technology. And so that helps me think through how could we possibly use the technology. And then, like Dave said, I think that forums like this are really important, where you can talk to other people that are in this space and hear about what they're doing and think about how that could apply to things maybe that you're doing today or that you want to do in the future.
Thank you, Chris. Just a quick tech check. I think Chris and I could talk all day, but the countdown clock is stuck at 14:59. So if you wanted to give us some form of a deadline, go ahead. All right. Well, now that we have these wonderful channels for sensing the world. Oh, I would add one thing. The government now are creating huge resources, NIST, and DHS, each of the agencies is publishing fantastic guidance, but also guardrails, safety training, and they're making it available publicly. A lot of it's behind the doors, but a lot of it is being shared. In fact, it's interesting to see different agencies or services applying their twist on those ideas. But those are great resources too.
Yeah, I agree, and you made me think of another one. GSA offers free training if you're in the federal government, if you have a .gov email, and I think that's a great opportunity to hear from experts. They partner with Stanford, I think it's GW Law and Carnegie Mellon. That's a great opportunity to stay caught up, to engage with others and hear what's going on, and then following. Like Dave said, organizations like NIST, and as they're putting out their latest guidance.
All right. Well, now we have to do math. We just have to subtract 5 from any number you see here. All right. So what's new? What's hot? What are we going to see? We've just lived through the era of generative AI RAG solutions. Are we going to see more on that continuum? What are you predicting people are going to be adopting and pushing out in the next year or so?
I think it's hard to tell what's next in a way, but I would say if you look at what's here now and is not yet being as utilized maybe as it will be in a year, or you listen to people like Andrew Ng, he's a Stanford professor. He founded Coursera, Deep Learning AI, and I hear him say on a regular basis that agentic workflows, so agents, that's already become a huge thing, but that it's going to be, I think, continue to be a significant factor as we look ahead. One caution I would have on that, though, is that it's become a buzzword. So now you hear agent this and agent that, and I don't know that it is always truly the underlying agentic workflow. But I think that's something that's really interesting. I'm fascinated personally by some of the video and the image generators. There's this image generator called Flux that you can go in and you can train what's known as a LoRa. It's a fine-tuning approach, and you can train it on yourself, which I did, or you can train it on some other type of image, and then you can go in and generate images based on that. And it's amazing how realistic those images can be, and that's not necessarily something that I think that we could apply today at DHS, but I do think it's really amazing to look at that capability and see how it could be applied. And in areas like marketing, I think it'll be huge. Other areas, when you look at all the changes to the LLM space, and it seems like you have ChatGPT 4.0, and then you have o1 that came out that is really driven by agentic workflow. So that's a great way to see what could be coming in the future. And then you look at Anthropic and their Claude models. Llama recently came out with Llama 3.2. One thing that I think is really interesting about that is they introduced two really small models, a 1 billion, I think, and a 3 billion parameter model. So these are for edge devices. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch in the future. And if you are looking forward to having AI on your iPhone, which I haven't seen exactly what that's going to look like, but that's another thing to look forward to. So I think there's so much that's evolving, and I think that I love it when something new comes out, like this Runway is a video platform. And the other day they came out with this thing, it's called Act One, where you can go into Runway, you can upload a video, and then you can apply that to some other like caricature. And then it'll take your gestures and your voice. And again, that's similar to the image generator, where I don't know that I see a direct correlation to how I would use that at work, but on the weekends it is very entertaining.
I love your weekends. Let's riff on the agentic oversell for a moment. If we think about one of the biggest concerns that we've heard for the last years is the fear of hallucinations, and that general purpose foundational models generally don't know much about our policies, your policies, so they might make them up. But if we connect them to a knowledge base and use a RAG architecture, we might get a better answer. What we're seeing is LLMs evaluating those answers and then adapting the prompts so that we get better answers. So we get this nice feedback, adaptive RAG. So I'd put that out there as probably a hallucination reduction technique that people bake into these services. But if you're building them yourself, you want to look at those. And then riff once more on AI at the edge. A couple weeks ago, we were asked about the future. I see robots and autonomous vehicles with AI doing inference at the edge. Maybe not next year, but somewhere in the future. All right, so as I look at the room, I see people here in lots of different categories. But I would say there's a rough division between perhaps users and builders and maybe sellers or people who are strategic and they're thinking of the use. So that's a lot of different personas to educate and to develop. So what are some of your tried and true methods for developing an AI workforce across so many different personas?
I don't think one size fits all. I think that you have to look at the audience and what is it that maybe that they need to understand about AI. And I focus a lot on generative AI. So I have put together a list of courses for senior leaders that would be different than people that want to develop generative AI solutions. So for senior leaders, I think it's important to understand what is the technology at a high level. At a high level, how does it work? What are the risks, and how do you mitigate the risks, and how can it impact the organization, and maybe some real world applications. But if you're a developer, I think it's a much different set of material that you want to take a look at. It's how do LLMs work and how are they built? What's the foundation? Even looking at how are they trained, and not that we're all going to build foundation models, but I think if you understand how they're built from the ground up, you can be much more effective in applying them. So looking at people like Andre Karpathy, he's amazing. He used to work at OpenAI and at Tesla, and he has a number of videos. He actually has one on building GPT 3.0, which I have started and I haven't finished, but that's an amazing video to watch. And then I think more broadly for the general population, and I don't know that it's represented in this group, but if you look across our organizations, if you're in the federal sector or private sector or wherever you happen to be, I think for the majority of people, it's giving them access to the tools like ChatGPT, even the publicly available tools, and then showing them how those tools work. I don't think it's enough to just give people access and say, go figure it out. I think that the most effective thing that I've seen is actually walking through use cases. Here's a scenario. Here's some data that you could put into a generative AI tool, and you could analyze the data. And I'm going to show you how to do it. And then when it generates a response, I'm going to talk about, was that what I thought would happen or wouldn't happen? And I think sometimes that's the most important thing, because it doesn't always do what you would anticipate. I mean, hopefully it's directionally correct, but sometimes the important thing is to help people understand, well, actually, how do you steer it to get closer to what maybe it is that how you would like to use it, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm going to quote in the few seconds we have left. One of our former panels said, "If you're going to give somebody a dragon, you better teach them something about fire safety." So I think you covered that very well. Thank you. Safe, secure, ethical use of these services to make sure we don't embarrass ourselves.
Yep.
Good. And with the last few minutes, if you have anything you want to say, seconds.
Actually, I'm up next, and I'm going to keep talking about something else, so I'll spare everybody for now, and then I'll talk more.
Oh, we're getting the stretch. We have 2 more minutes. Okay, I can't tell time. Industry, how can they help government in the safe and responsible use of AI or development and deployment of same?
I think industry is critical. I think it's a partnership. When you look at, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think that most federal organizations are going to build foundation models, so that's a partnership. I think there's a lot of other capabilities. If you look at the spectrum of how AI is used across the federal government, there are just so many partnerships with the software providers, with the implementers. So I think partnership is critical for us to accomplish the mission needs that are so important in our organizations.
Thanks, Chris. So there's a lot of folks here who sell software and AI-related software. Is there a place for that in the support for the mission? Definitely, and I think it's interesting now as you look at the evolving landscape. It seems like either a lot more people are selling AI, or a lot more people have put the letters AI at the end of their organization or on their product. And it's probably a combination of both, and maybe that's okay. But and I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes. But as we look at DHS, we just started bringing on a lot of AI experts internally. So we have a lot of capability to deliver the technology, but also work with industry. And as we work with industry, it's going to be taking a very informed approach. It's not going to be just asking for a product and trusting that consultants know everything there is to know about AI, because I don't believe that that's true. I think that
if people want to sell to the government, I hope that they know what they're talking about and that they can demonstrate how the technology is actually used, how it's evaluated, how it's going to deliver value to the federal government. That's the way I look at it. But at the end of the day, it's a partnership, and to be successful, we need to work together.
Thanks, Chris. It's been enjoyable spending the morning with you. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your remarks.
Thanks, Dave.